and welcome to Dub at the Cup, KEEPUP's daily podcast, recounting all of the Women's World Cup action. My name is Taryn, Heddo. Joining me, as always, Pellizzeri. Teo, we've seen our first upset of the tournament, Philippines, with their first win.
Yeah, what a sensational result for the Philippines. It's certainly blown the group wide open with New Zealand now in a bit of a shaky position. Taryn, we have to start with the biggest talking point of the day, Hannah Wilkinson's offside. New Zealand were charging back into this game, trying to come back from a goal deficit, a goal scored by A-League women's star Serena Bolden, of course. But what could have been the equaliser for Jackie Hand was disallowed for Hannah Wilkinson being offside in the build-up. What were your thoughts?
Well, at first, when I first saw the goal, I thought it was a Miedemar moment. I thought Hannah Wilkinson had just done enough, kept the ball in, had crossed the ball to Jackie Hand, who finished, but no, millimetres offside. And it's one of those things with the technology, it's the technically correct decision, and you have to, you live by the technology, you die by the technology, unfortunately.
Let's be honest though, when FIFA tweaks the offside rule, this highlight will probably lead every package because it's happened in a World Cup to a host nation. I don't think you can think of a higher profile example of perhaps where the rule is not in the spirit of the game, would you say? I mean, I'm certain that if that goal stands, New Zealand go on to win. In fact, I'm sure if Grace Jale had scored from that amazing save by Olivia McDaniel, New Zealand may yet have gone on to grab an even later winner, and yet they walk away empty-handed.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Olivia McDaniel was given the player of the match by FIFA for that performance, not the goal scorer, Serena Bolden, and that says something about the importance of that late save and about her performance. Look, no, New Zealand obviously gutted with that disallowed goal. It was their path back into the game. They would have backed themselves to get another as well, do a Sweden, if you like, but in the end, they hit the post, they worked really, really hard, but just couldn't get the winner.
Did Jitka Klimkova get her subs right? I thought they took Indy Riley off too soon. I thought they brought Grace Jale on too late. And I guess what I'm saying is, was Olivia Chance the right choice to bring on at halftime for New Zealand? Because I think they were a little bit passive before the Philippines scored. They didn't do enough to actually force the issue, almost like they might have sneakily been happy with 4 points after 2 games. But what were your thoughts on the New Zealand substitution strategy and how they went about chasing the game?
Well, something had to change at halftime, and I think those 2 substitutes by Jitka Klimkova, at halftime, I think that was the thing that had to be done. I think it sent a clear message. We need to change this game. We need to come back into it. Yes, I agree. We haven't maybe seen the best of India Page-Riley at this World Cup so far, and pulling her at halftime, she is a path to goal. She's someone who can score, who can create, maybe too early, but then again, all easy to say in hindsight.
Grace Jale, does she start the 3rd game? Because I thought she was a game changer when she came on. Obviously has not appeared, much in this tournament. Is she the sort of player that New Zealand need to start with now, given that they probably can't risk going through with 4 points? There's a chance that this group could end up as a 9-3-3-3. There's a chance that this group could end up with a team on 4 points and it coming down to really goal difference and maybe even people shouting from the bench, no, one more, keep attacking, which is not ideal, but that's the madness of the final day of a group stage.
Yeah, look, they've got to try something now against Switzerland. They've got to throw all of their cards on the table. And Grace Jale, we've seen her in the A-League Women's throughout the season. We know how powerful she is. She can create. She can just be a wrecking ball up front or in the midfield as well. So absolutely, I think she should start.
All right, Angie Beard was heroic for the Philippines. 2 incredible performances. I think she was one of their better players in the first game, which of course they lost, but she was basically, marking Ramona Bachmann and trying to push into midfield and take all their set pieces. She almost playing the role of 3 players in one, but she was brilliant again today and did it with knowing that she was playing on a booking as well after the yellow card she picked up for the dangerous slide that didn't actually really collect Jackie Hand, but forced Jackie Hand to hurdle over her.
Yes, the look on her face said it all, I think, after she was awarded that yellow card. Look, Angie Beard, another fantastic performance. We know how good she is. Defensive duties, attacking duties, set-piece duties, everything for Angie Beard. And remember, of course, the goal came off the back of an Angie Beard set piece. It was the second ball back into the box, so a big tick for her.
And Alan Stajic, the coach. Now, he has been note perfect with every press conference and every curly question about the diaspora. Newsflash, people, the Philippines is a country of 109 million. There is going to be a diaspora. There are going to be lots of Filipino people in every country in the world. And quite simply, instead of putting his foot in the ground and maybe becoming frustrated with the line of questioning, which is openly xenophobic, borderline racist, right? But he has always emphasised the positives and he has played a straight bat. And I tell you what a coaching performance to build this program and also to get this result today. You'd have to think that if you're a country that's never qualified for a World Cup before and you want to bring in someone that knows how to get it done, he's got to be at the top of your Rolodex. I mean, he might go back to club football, but you'd think there'd be a lot of national teams watching what he's done with the Philippines saying, that could be us.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic personal achievement for him and his coaching staff as well, who are there with him. Look, it's remarkable. The Philippines, they've climbed, I think, 30 rankings places over the past few years in his tenure, qualified for their first ever World Cup, and the first debutant at this World Cup to get a result. Really the first upset we've seen.
Well, the only debutant to have scored as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no doubt Haiti will score a goal at some point. You know, Morocco might score a goal at some point, but not just to score, to win. Like, it's a sensational achievement.
It is, and I think it showed how organised they are. Their defence, you know, they didn't give up. It was very difficult for New Zealand to find a way through. New Zealand forced to those Route 1 balls, those crosses that we've talked about time and time again, because the Philippines were so well organised. So, as I say, a fantastic personal achievement for him, but a wonderful day for the Philippines as well.
And the stocks of Australian coaches, as we know, are at an all-time high. But it's not just Alan Stajic, it's Nahuel Arate in his coaching team, and also Perth Glory's Alex Apakis, who has joined his coaching team for this World Cup. So there's A-League connections everywhere, but it's also, it just goes to show Australia's coaching intellectual property. It makes sense. I mean, you know, the last major event of this magnitude we held was the Sydney Olympics, and it means that Australian coaches in swimming, cycling, athletics have gone all over the world. Sports science, Australia is considered a world leader. Cricket, we basically had every coach of every national team at some point there. Why not football? Honestly, why not football? It's not just Ange Postecoglou, it's not just Alan Stajic. There is so much great intellectual property in Australian coaches.
There absolutely is, and hey, let's give some credit to Kat Smith as well. Serena Bolden, the goal scorer of Western Sydney Wanderers fame. So, you know, maybe spreading the credit around a little bit more there, but no, it's a fantastic achievement for Australia, putting Australian coaching in lights, and why not?
All right, the game that took place here behind us earlier today, 24,500 people for a midday Tuesday kickoff. Taryn, I was here. If you weren't here, you need to get to Colombia versus Germany. You need to get a ticket. It was an experience. So loud, truly incredible. The Colombian fans are brilliant. Taryn, we're in a position where we might have Brazil versus Colombia round of 16 in Adelaide. That would be one heck of an occasion if we get that. But what did you make of both Linda Caicedo, the player of the match, the young star from Colombia, but also Colombia's performance beating Korea Republic, South Korea 2-0?
I think what we saw with Colombia is something that we saw with Brazil last night as well. Just playing with this freedom, this lack of fear, something that I think has really been missing from a lot of the top teams in this tournament. I think tournament football, you know, you're more scared of making a mistake than you are wanting to do the right thing sometimes. And Colombia just completely played without that. Linda Caicedo, a fantastic performance, and what a story as well.
The devil's advocate might say that Colombia's 2 goals were from a contentious penalty and a goalkeeping mistake. I think that's what Colin Bell, the Korea coach, said after the game, trying to put a bit of a spin on it. But I thought their control of the game and their management of the game after taking the lead, Korea, watching this from the media gantry in a high position and watching the lack of work rate in their team. Colin Bell criticised his team after the game for not working as hard, not being as physical, but their press burnt out. Colombia were able to keep the ball without the midfield pressure and without Korea really threatening to get back into the game and just sort of hover around 60 to 65% possession because they weren't being pressured on the ball. It was a superb display of game management, albeit with a bit of a slice of luck coming with both the goals that they scored.
Well, that's exactly right. And I wonder if the story from this game is not just about Colombia's performance, which was very good, but also about Korea's performance, which I thought was very, very disappointing. What you said about the possession stat is very interesting as well. And I wonder if maybe South Korea do struggle. You know, we've seen them against Australia. We have very recent history of them playing very well in a low block with less possession. Maybe in a game where they could have taken the upper hand. They could have had more possession in this game. I'm sure they didn't set up to have 30-35% possession against Colombia. maybe they're really struggling in that situation. Maybe they're a bit of a one-note side.
Must be said, Colombia's goalkeeper also very good, but you can't take player of the match away from Linda Caicedo. Just a thought on her. 18 years old, Real Madrid. Grace Ma's pick for player of the tournament right here on Dub at the Cup. And you saw the reaction of Pakua and I when she made that pick. Well, I think that's a reason we get the players on, because Grace Ma knew.
Grace Ma knows ball. You heard it here first at Dub at the Cup. Look, no, a fantastic story. In the last 12 months, she's played in the under-17, under-20, and now a senior Women's World Cup. She was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 15, has overcome that, and is now scoring for her country on the world stage. Just phenomenal, and her story will dominate the headlines for good reason.
Korea would probably need to get something off Germany to get through from here. Are they done? Any hope at all, given how intimidating Germany looked beating Morocco?
You can never write anyone off, and I would be very silly to do so in a public space. But look, it's very, very difficult to see them getting past Germany.
All right, those were today's games that we are recording during the third game on Dub at the Cup. It's time to talk about England, one of the biggest teams at this tournament, huge expectation. And joining us is KEEPUP's James Dodd, who was at England training on the Central Coast. They're loving life up there, James. It's great to have you on Dub at the Cup. Please bring us up to speed with your takeaways and insights, and also some of the people you chatted to at England training.
Yeah, good evening, Toe. Good evening, Taryn. It was a fantastic day up at the Central Coast Stadium today. I think the locals that are kind of locals anyway, I mean, we spoke to a lot of England fans who we were hoping had flown over. They actually lived on the Central Coast and they were there with their kids, and it was a great day. I think roughly close to 2,000 people turned up to watch the Lionesses train, and Serena Wiegmann they had a really good session in front of the fans. It was a full-on session as well. There was nothing held back. Sometimes when you go to these events, it often can be, they go through the motions a little bit. They were having full-size games in there. It was really, tackles were flying in. And in terms of observations, I think Lauren James was an interesting one, because we know that, Taryn and I were discussing off air before we came on about how impressive we thought she was in that game against Haiti when she came off the bench. She was having a couple of straps put on her back today before the warm-up started, which was very interesting, and a good observation of perhaps that's why she didn't start that game, given maybe it might be an injury there. But it was just fantastic to see a very large travelling press contingent following England. There's a lot of expectations on the Lionesses coming into this tournament as reigning European champions. And there was also quite a few members of an A-League fraternity in the crowd as well. One of those was the inaugural A-League Women's Central Coast Mariners head coach, Emily Husband. I asked her what she had made of the start to the Women's World Cup, especially some of the bigger teams in the start that they've made.
It's a really hard, thing to overcome when you're playing against teams that are sitting in against you. You've got to be really creative. You've got to move the ball well, a lot of the teams probably wouldn't have prepared to be up against that sort of playing style. Where ultimately they might not have played as well as what we know they can do. Ultimately, they've still got the job done. So that's the most important thing in tournament football. Might not be pretty, but it's walking away with that win.
So we just heard from Emily Husband, Central Coast Mariners' inaugural women's coach. James, what did you make of that chat?
Yeah, it was very interesting because, she was there with Julie Dolan was there as well, Annalise Rasmussen was there, really sort of taking on board, potentially, I suppose, from not just the coaching perspective for Emily, but for Annalise, from a player's perspective, watching some of these players go through the drills that they would go through, just picking up little hints and tips, I should say, that we saw actually a couple of the fans did the same thing. It was really nice for them to actually watch what these elite level players go through when they're going through these sort of open training sessions. And as I touched on earlier, it really was a proper training session. There was nothing held back, and it was great to see them, I suppose, maybe with a little bit of a point to prove as well, because we saw the analysis coming from the UK after that game against Haiti. Very similar to the Matildas. I think a lot of people back in England were expecting them to play a lot better than they did. As Emily Husband said, the most important thing, there's pressure on, you walk away with the win, and that's a lot of the job done in the group stages. And, we did have quite a funny moment. I asked her if she was there as a scouting mission. She, said, I would dream to have some of these players, maybe not in the first season at the Mariners, but, it was nice to sort of touch on what is such a feel-good factor as well with that football club. We saw the men's win the championship last year. There's such a buzz around the Central Coast Football Club in general with the ladies team coming in this season. One player that I did, Taryn and Toe, try and recruit on behalf of the A-League Women's today was the Manchester United captain, Katie Zelem. This is what she had to say when I asked her if she'd be interested in plying her trade on these shores.
To be honest, I'm an absolute sun worshipper, and it's chucking it down in Manchester right now, so that's definitely a great factor. I think you never know where you can end up in your career, and Australia is a beautiful country from what we've seen so far, so looking forward to exploring some more. For us, we're always wanting to push women's football forward, and whether that be England, Australia, across the world, we really want to see the game grow and teams develop. Been to some phenomenal places with England and on holiday, but the view there is just breathtaking. The whole session, I was like, I want to get a photo over there. I think Australia's got so much to offer. We've been here, Sunshine Coast, Brisbane. I think every place is so different, and that's what's special about the country.
Well, Liberty A-League's coaches, you heard it here first. Katie Zelem should be number one on your list to recruit next summer. James, what did you make of England overall? Of course, they've got their next game coming up on Friday right here against Denmark. How do you rate their chances?
It will be, I think we'll see a very different England from what we saw against Haiti. You know, they had a great support up in Brisbane. This will be like a home game for them on Friday against Denmark at Allianz. You know, that we know that there is so many, one right here, so many English people that live in Sydney. I have tickets for the game. TBC where I'm going to be working at the game, so I'll be giving those to another couple of English people to go along and cheer on the Lionesses. But I think you will see a different England. I think you touched on, rightly so earlier on, Taryn, about how some of the teams like Brazil have played with no fear. And I think if England are to really try and set the tournament alight and live up to that tag of being one of the favourites for this tournament, they're going to have to play better. They're going to have to play with a lot more freedom than they did against Haiti. I think against Denmark, it might be one of those cases where in their minds, they're playing against a better team, so they will naturally raise their game. So I think it will be fascinating to see how they do, because if they don't get a result against Denmark, then that makes the picture of that group look very interesting. So fascinating to see. 45,000 expected for the game here on Friday, and as I say, England will be very much looking forward to what will be a home game for them.
Well, speaking of home games, the Matildas, of course, being the host, have a home game of their own in Brisbane. Tom Smithies and Pakua Frimpong have been on the scene around and about in Brisbane, going to training, listening into the press conferences. Let's now hear from those two and KEEPUP's Matt Comito with an update outside the front of Brisbane Rectangular Stadium.
So we're just outside of Brisbane Stadium, ahead of the Group B fixture between the Matildas and the Super Falcons of Nigeria. It's going to play out on Thursday, the 27th of July at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Lots of drama ahead of this game, and lucky enough to be joined by Tom Smithies and Matt Comito to discuss all the important details. Smithies, a little bit of drama yesterday. Take us through it.
Poor Kyra Cooney-Cross. She'll be waking to some unfortunate headlines. She was just chatting about Sam Kerr, and as with all the players, they've all been saying the same neutral things about Sam, except Kyra made the fatal mistake of using the word torn in terms of Kerr's muscle. The thing that everyone is obsessing over, the status of that muscle. Everyone panicked, everyone looked aghast. Football Australia very quick to clarify that actually it was a slip of the tongue, that Cooney-Cross simply meant a strain or a calf injury, which is the term they're using. Certainly Sam herself was literally bouncing up and down for the cameras quite showily, a little bit like this really, just before training, an hour or two before, and just to show that she's in her trying to tell the world she's well on the way to recovery. So we're not much further forward in what we actually know, but there was a brief and exciting period of drama.
Now, it's not just Sam Kerr in the attacking line that's got some issues. Kai Simon walked into this World Cup with a slight injury, and we still haven't seen her. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, well, I think the concern from the media pack is that every time we show up at the Matildas training camp, we're not actually seeing Kaya Simon do anything at the moment, and it has been quite a decent amount of time since they arrived here in Brisbane. It's getting a bit concerning with Kaya. I mean, we definitely won't see her against Nigeria. It seems like Tony Gustafsson has a definite plan for her in mind for deeper in the tournament, which is a sign of confidence for Australia. But yeah, at the moment, we're just not seeing a side of her, and with Kerr injured as well, it's a bit of a concern.
Now, it's not just the attack that's have injuries as well. The defence has also been plagued with it. Claire Polkinghorne walked into this tournament with an injury concern. So did Alana Kennedy. And Claire Hunt, we saw just a few days ago, sitting out of that training that the media were able to witness. Can you give us an update on all those guys?
Sure. You have to remember that load management is a key thing here, that they've got to plan out the tournament and how much effort these guys put in. So Claire Hunt was just normal load management. She was relaxing for a day. She was back in full training yesterday. Alana Kennedy is simply doing laps at the moment. Again, we're being told it's load management, but if we want to get into the whole idea of Tony Gustafsson's mind games and all the stuff that he did with Sam Kerr in the pre-match press conference before the first game against Ireland and not revealing her calf injury, Tony's put up Claire Polkinghorne to talk to the media the day before the game. So we're all sitting here wondering, does that mean she starts? And she has hardly played. In fact, she's not played a game since April. She's had not a full game. She's had a few minutes against France, a few minutes against Ireland. They're up against some very quick forwards. It's going to be, either way, it's clearly going to be a gamble. We're assuming it's going to be Hunt with either Kennedy or Polkinghorne.
Certainly looks like the case. Now, we've obviously touched on the Matildas and Nigeria. We all were able to see a little bit of their training as well, and we saw Ashwala in person. Now, I've just got to say, looked like an absolute beast, okay? I think I need to find her gym regiment as well because I might get a little bit of inspiration. Can you take us through what we saw yesterday?
I think you were a little bit starstruck yesterday looking through that door, but yeah, we did see Oshuala off to the side of Nigerian training, and you don't think that there'd be cause for concern right now with Oshuala. She's the star of the show for Nigeria, and we do expect her to play a big part against Australia. But yes, when we went to the open training at Lions Stadium, she was off to the side. The main group was on the pitch, and Oshuala looked like she was being put through her paces in the gym on her own. So that might be a concern. But I guess we are turning our attention from a very defensive sort of island setup to a Nigerian outfit that might cause a bit of problems, Tom.
Absolutely. I had an interesting chat with Francisca Ortega, who in a storied career that's taken her all over the world, includes 6 games for Sydney FC about 7 years ago. She has unbelievable memories of Australia to the degree that she told me she wouldn't celebrate if they won because she loved Australia so much, had the best Christmas Eve of her life in Sydney. There you go. Yes, certainly Nigeria looked very, very ebullient yesterday, so full of confidence, so excited. As music was going at training, they're here to cause a shock. They're here to make a mark, and Australia need to be very, very careful.
Now, I personally was loving the Nigeria setup. The Afro beats were playing. I felt a little bit of I wanted to dance a little bit as well. And the vibes heading into this in Brisbane have been quite good, not just from the Matildas' perspective, but from the Nigerian one as well.
Yeah, and I think that we are going to see this city come alive in the days and hours leading into kickoff. Which is to be expected. And, Nigeria, from what we saw at training with the players themselves, you can expect the fans and the crowd when they do arrive here at Brisbane Stadium on Thursday night to be bringing the noise, bringing the heat and bringing the buzz. But that'll be matched by Australia. I think that so many of the players in the Matildas setup are from Queensland, and the Matildas have put up a few of the Queensland locals like Tamika Yallop and Katrina Gorry, and tomorrow they'll put up Claire Polkinghorne on matchday -1. They're 3 really proud Queenslanders who know exactly what it means to this city to have a World Cup game here, especially an Australian one. And just together with Australia and Nigeria, the fans, the players, it's going to be a really exciting concoction for what should be a really thrilling group stage game.
And to catch that game, that's on Thursday, the 27th of July, here at Brisbane Stadium at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And to catch all the latest news about the Women's World Cup, follow us on our socials at KEEPUP and go on keepup.com.au.
Big thanks to Pakua Frimpong, who will be back hosting this podcast, Dub at the Cup, live from Brisbane tomorrow, which, Taryn, means that I need to get your preview a day early because we know that Kaya Simon and Sam Kerr both aren't training, both won't play against Nigeria. What are you thinking about starting 11? Do you have any changes from the team that played Ireland? Do you have anything on your wish list that you'd like to see from the Matildas when they line up against Nigeria?
I think for the most part, the starting lineup will be unchanged. However, there may be a change in defence. Claire Polkinghorne has been lined up for a press conference before the match, and usually that is a starting 11 player. So we might see that one change, Claire Polkinghorne coming in for Alana Kennedy, but other than that, it will be unchanged. We don't really have too many options up top to change it up, even if we wanted to, Teo.
And some great footage in that clip of Asisat Oshuala seemingly in the background, training on her own, doing her own gym work, not with the Nigeria team. So for all the dramas we have with Sam Kerr, Nigeria, their own superstar, has her own issues. But who the centre-back pairing is could be all important to trying to limit her impact on the game.
It absolutely could be. We know that Nigeria are going to try and catch us out with their pace up front. They're going to try and get in behind the defence. And, well, Polkinghorne is getting on a little bit. She still does need the statue built, but maybe might not be able to keep up with some of the pacey Nigerian forwards, so it could be a huge factor.
And James, some quick thoughts from you on the Matildas as well. This is match day -2, so we're getting closer to Thursday. What are your feelings at this point about what you'd like to see?
I think it's Taryn touched on it really well there. Actually, I think it's important with Claire Polkinghorne. Tony Gustafsson brought her on in that game against the Republic of Ireland because he obviously trusts her to bring that steady presence and to see the game out, to bring some defensive resilience in there. Alana Kennedy, as we know, has been doing laps at training this week, which is, this when you're trying to get minutes into the legs, there's only so much you can do without forcing it and overloading and sort of managing those, as Tom Smithy said in the piece there, managing the minutes and managing the load that goes through the legs. So it's going to be very interesting. I don't think you can, given Katrina Gorry's incredible performance, I don't think you can really change the composition of the midfield because, her and Kyra Cooney-Cross were a nice pivot in the middle there, and I think maybe if there was to be a change, maybe Emily Van Egmond might be someone that he might look into kind of play balls from deep, but we know Kyra Cooney-Cross is so adept at doing that anyway. I think realistically, like England and like some of the other bigger nations, I think you just want to see a bit more pace within the Australian team. I think you want them to play quicker. You want them to move the opposition around a bit more to try and unlock the teams that play that lower block, that deep block. And I think we will see that from the Matildas. We know they're going to have a rapturous support there up in Brisbane, and I'm fully expecting them to get the job done against Nigeria. I think it will be a much more open game than the Ireland game was, and I think that will suit the Matildas.
Well, on the subject of Ireland, they play a day earlier. So let's get into our rapid-fire predictions to bring home tonight's dub at the Cup. 2 games in New Zealand, and then the late one over in Perth, which is a 10 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Perfect time slot for Perth, though. All kickoffs Australian Eastern Standard Time. 3 p.m, Japan against Costa Rica. These were, opposite ends of the spectrum in game 1. Taryn, how are you feeling about this one? Give us a score prediction.
I think Japan are going to continue their good form, but I think they might give up a goal. I'll go 2-1 Japan.
James, how are you feeling about Japan versus Costa Rica?
I like Japan's structure. I like the way they play, and I think that will be too much for Costa Rica. I think a convincing 2-0.
5:30 p.m. will be Spain against Zambia. This game could mathematically eliminate not one, but the first 2 teams out of this tournament, depending on the Japan result. So we could have our first 6-6-0-0 group with Costa Rica and Zambia going home if the results go against the underdogs. Taryn, will Zambia bounce back or will Spain continue on their merry way?
I think Spain continue on their merry way, absolutely. I think it could be 4 or 5-0.
James?
Yeah, I think 3-0 to Spain. I love watching them play. I've got a soft spot. I speak Spanish. I've got a soft spot. I've got a lot of friends from Spain asking me about the Women's World Cup and how they think Spain will go. I just think the stardust in that team on their day has the ability to beat anybody, and I think Spain will be way too strong for Zambia.
And then 10 p.m. over in Perth, Canada against the Republic of Ireland. This is a huge game. Canada, can they find their goal-scoring form? Ireland, can they bounce back from the disappointment of losing to Australia? If this game is a draw, Australia will be able to seal top spot in the group by beating Nigeria the day after. So there is so much at stake for these 2 teams. Taryn, what's your feeling on Canada against the Republic of Ireland?
Very, very difficult to separate. I'm going to go maybe a slight Matildas bias here. I'll go a 1-1 draw.
And James?
I'm actually on board. I think it's going to be a goalless draw. I think both teams will probably cancel each other out. I think there's also a lot of pressure on Canada going into this game. We saw what Republic of Ireland could do against the Matildas last week. The final ball was lacking a little bit. I think Canada are going to be under some pressure going into this game. I think it's going to be a draw.
Oh, fascinating day of World Cup action coming up. And of course, Dub at the Cup will be speaking to current A-League women's players, coaches, as we heard from Emily Husband of the Central Coast Mariners today, and also former Matildas all through the tournament with our daily drop of this podcast. Taryn, where can people find out more about KEEPUP's World Cup coverage?
Well, you can follow us on all social media platforms, whether that be Twitter, Instagram, whatever you like. Follow us there. You can also follow the podcast itself wherever you get your podcast, and also on the KEEPUP YouTube channel. Well, thank you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure having your company. I hope you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon or evening, and goodbye.